Hi, Sarah. How are you doing?
Good, thank you. Nice to be here.
Good, and welcome to my other's keeper. Now, Sarah Jean Stewart, what do you like to be called?
Sarah's fine. Yeah.
Okay, Sarah.
I leave all those
Sarah
names
is,
in there because I've been known by different things throughout time, so that way people can find me.
yeah, that's very fair. Yeah, no, I on my Facebook I have my first excuse me, my first name, my maiden name, and then my last name. So it's like, if you remember me from, pre-1990, you might remember this name. If you remember
Yep.
after 1995, you'll remember this name. So yeah, we got married in 95. So yeah.
That's
Anyway,
awesome.
so
Efficiency, I like it.
awesome. Well, actually, I found out about that at a family reunion I was attending. And one of my uncles had said to all of you young ladies who have Facebook out there, please put your maiden name in it. So those of us, or so those people later on in years, when they want to find you, say for a reunion or something,
Mhm.
they want to be able to find you, right?
Yeah, that makes
So,
perfect
if
sense.
you, doesn't it? Yeah, I thought so. Anyway, so now that you know a little too much about my Facebook habits, um, I haven't met you before. I have not met you before.
No,
So I know several other people in your life. I've known Josh since 90. He and I went to hair school together.
that's
Yes,
awesome.
Josh went to hair school.
Oh, I know.
And and I met Jenn after they had married. I didn't get to meet her beforehand. So after they were married in what was that, 97? No,
Well, they're coming up on their 25th soon, so
99 then.
yeah, crazy.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We were in New Brunswick at the time. That's why I couldn't make it to their wedding. Okay. Yes. Man, oh man. I'm not that old. Just
Time
so you know, I
flies.
was 12 when that happened. So, yeah, that's my story
Good
and I'm
crack.
sticking to it. Yeah. Anyway, so tell me about yourself. Who are
Well,
you?
I am a bit of a weirdo, and I say that with waving my weirdo flag high. I like to do a lot of things in the sense that my motto in life might in fact be do all the things. So I'm a photographer. That's
Okay.
what I do to make money most of the time, among other things. But I like to keep life interesting and kind of dabble in a little bit of everything. The way I see it, I like trying new things. I certainly could master one or two of those things, or I
If
could
only you
be
wanted to.
okay at a lot of things, and that's the
Yeah.
route that I go. So if you can imagine it, I've probably tried it or thought about it. I collect certificates like a compulsion. So
Okay.
always out there learning something new or trying something new.
That's wonderful. That's an attitude I think more people need to have, frankly. So at least
I can see the
to a
value on
degree.
both sides. I mean, there's something to be said for really getting good at something, and I understand that.
Yeah.
It's not quite something that draws me.
Right. Right. Yeah, I could see that. It's yeah, my husband's been at the same place of work for 31 years now. I
Wow,
know, right? He's furniture there.
that's
That's,
impressive.
there's the desk, there's the chairs, there's our Doug, and there we yeah, go from
Yeah.
there. So, yeah, that's so in that way we've been involved with that family for the last 31 years. And since Doug and I've been together for 33 years, it's just been it has been a huge part of both of our lives for literally decades.
Really, that's like part of your
So
family at this point.
that is totally part of our family. Yeah.
Yeah.
There are a few people, I think there's 5 people who have worked where he works for either the same amount of time or a little longer.
That's amazing. It
Yeah.
must be a good workplace then, because people often don't stick around that long if it's not.
These are very faithful people.
That's phenomenal.
No, it has been a great workplace for to support us for this many years.
That's
He's
amazing.
had all sorts of jobs there, like they've actually created positions so that he wouldn't have to leave.
Oh, that's
So
great.
they have been really, really good to us that way. It's been really nice.
Amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of cool. And then there's me who started adulthood as a hairdresser and then uh, went to New Brunswick, had 1 baby, got pregnant with a 2nd baby, and moved back to Saskatchewan in 11 months. And,
Wow,
oh, I know, yeah, it was a speedy year. 7 months pregnant when we moved out, 3 months pregnant when we moved home.
that
So
happened to me almost when I lived in China for a while. So
oh,
I
wow.
went there 5 months pregnant with my first daughter, who's now 15, and came back on her first birthday pregnant, like as pregnant as I could be while still being allowed to fly back to Canada.
Wow. Wow, how many months different are your 2 children?
So
Or 2
those,
those 2 children?
yeah, I have 5. So
Yes.
right now they're about to be 15, 14, 13, and 11. When I had the last of the 4 girls, I had 4 children under 4. So, you
Wow.
know, never bored. And then now
No.
we have a 3-year-old as well, who's pretty awesome too.
I was gonna say, there's one more in there kinda just
Yeah,
way under the radar. He's
yeah,
probably is the radar these
yeah.
days,
He's
being
gooched in
3,
lately.
so
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Let's show a picture of your family here.
Yes,
Okay,
cookie
so here
decorating
we
day.
go. There's you. Now,
Yeah.
are you seeing
So
my pointer at all
I am
when I
not,
point?
but I can sort of give you
Okay, so
the
who are these
clockwise
people?
version from me. How's that?
Sure, sounds great.
So so I'm there at the front. I decided, well, most of the people that live in the house were together decorating cookies. I would get a picture of it. This is at Adam's mom's house. So Adam, if I'm at 6 o'clock and you start going clockwise around the clock, we have Adam, and then Lyndon, the 3-year-old, Violet, Jen, and Josh at the head of the table there, Rose, Lily, and Dahlia.
Oh, wow. So you have all, like, floral or botanical, that's the word I'm looking for, botanical
Yes.
names. Interesting.
We do, and honestly, the first 3 weren't on purpose. Just happened to
Really?
be the first 3 names that we liked, but then Dahlia, definitely on purpose. We figured we kinda had to choose a flower name for her, else that would be kind of a jerk move, name her Stephanie or something.
Yeah, I know. I like these 3, but that one,
Yeah,
yeah. And linden is actually one of my favorite trees.
I
So,
love
yeah.
linden trees. We
Are don't
pick
they smell
linden
good?
flowers. They smell so great, and we pick the flowers every year and make tea. We do a lot of foraging in our family, so
Oh, wow.
yeah. We actually homeschooled
Okay.
all of the girls right up until last year when they went to school for the first time. And a
Wow.
big part of our homeschool was nature study and herbal study. So we went out with a local herbalist regularly and learned about wild, edible, and medicinal plants, and learned how to make plant remedies and what we could eat on the go and what not to eat. And
Yeah,
then also,
that's just as important, if not more.
yes. And we also did a lot of traveling for homeschool. So when we were in other areas, we'd meet up with local herbalists there and learn about the plants in that area as well. So
Oh, wow. That is
yeah,
so cool. That is great. You must have a lot of patience to be able to homeschool that many children.
honestly, they're really good kids. So, it starts with that. I am very lucky that they were all incredibly lovely, easy children. And even now, like I still say they're all people, even the 3-year-old, they're all people that I would just hang out with for fun, even if I didn't have to.
Oh, that's cool. That's
Yeah.
really cool. Yeah, a lot of parents can't say that about their kids. I can because my kids are awesome. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm
Of course.
I'm a
Yeah.
little biased, but, no, actually, I do hang out for fun with my younger daughter. She still lives in our house, but, I drive her to or from work, and that half hour of just the 2 of us alone, I love it. It is the
That's awesome.
best. I
It
mean,
is, and, even with a lot of kids, we still try to fit in alone time for them. So, we go to Nova Scotia quite a bit because I'm from Nova Scotia, and we
oh, okay.
visit a few times a year. And when we're there, especially because we have my mom also, we try to, take each of the girls out for what we call alone adventures, and
Yeah.
I'll sort of curate an adventure for a half day and take them out to do something. And I think that, getting that individual time in is hard when you have a huge family. We have 11 people living in this house.
Wow, 11.
11. And so, getting that individual time can be challenging, but I think is also important with any relationship.
Right, right.
Mhm.
Oh my goodness. Do you mind telling me where in Nova Scotia you're from?
Yeah, from Dartmouth.
Dartmouth. Okay, cool. I have an uncle who lived in Bathurst forever.
Oh
so
wow, yeah. There, Nova Scotia is beautiful, and
yeah.
not that I would recommend going there in the winter, but it is a lovely place. We just got back a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, it's, like I said, we lived in New Brunswick for about 11 months, and honestly, a few years after we got back from there, Doug and I went out and was like, "Okay, let's go home to New Brunswick," and we had lived there 11 months, you know?
Yeah.
It was just the coolest thing, the welcoming, the yeah, it just the people are amazing. Living in Saskatchewan, very, very close. It's a
Yeah,
very
really.
similar. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Like, you think small town Ontario is slow? Try moving to Saskatchewan and then move to New Brunswick.
I've
Oh,
driven
yeah.
through Saskatchewan a few times. I
Yeah?
always found it fascinating that you could like watch your dog run away for 3 days. Uh, but I've never
Yep,
spent a lot of time in Saskatchewan. I mean, I've heard lots of stories from Jen and Josh, but it's
yep.
on the list.
Well, you should, and each season has its own real benefit. I have
Mhm.
a cousin who is from British Columbia, and he would came out to Saskatoon to be manager of one of our local golf courses. And he's like, "What on earth do you see living out here? Like, it's nothing's here." And I'm like, "What do you mean nothing is here?" There look at so I drove him from the city out to our place, which is about half an hour down the highway through a whole pile of farms. It's like, okay, right through that field, that's your margarine. Right there, there's your Quaker
Mhm.
oats. Oh, there's bread. And oh, look, a little bit of beer over there. Like you're this is where you get all of that. And frequently being somebody from a city, um, they don't often think of where the food comes from and
Oh, definitely.
the vast amount of space it takes to grow that food,
Yep. Farmers feed
So
cities.
oh, do they ever? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, no, I love it out here. I love the patchwork quilt that it
Yes,
makes in certain
it
seasons. I
is
love that.
beautiful to fly over, isn't it?
Isn't it? Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, it's great. Yes. My younger daughter, has said, Mom, if you ever move to BC, I'll never see you." "Why?" "'Cause then I have to go through the mountains." Just so, okay. Guess who doesn't like to be hemmed in?
Yep. If you lived in all that open space forever, I could see that.
Yeah, and our older daughter now lives in, Ontario as well. So she's gone to university there, and she hasn't told me which she prefers, but her boyfriend is from Montreal. S So, I think she's gonna be out that direction for the foreseeable future. So,
I'm
that's
off
how
to
it
Montreal
goes.
this weekend.
So yeah. Are you? What are you up to there?
Yeah, so Josh and I are headed to the archaeology
Oh, did I
museum.
freeze?
Yep, I think you glitched for a sec there. Can you hear me now?
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Okay. And then I'm on set for a small production later in the day. So yeah.
Oh, interesting. What are you doing? What sort of production are you involved in?
It's a small company in Montreal that makes videos specifically for consumption on Facebook. So they tell short
Really?
stories in 3 minutes and film them in a day. It's a really cool experience. I've been working with them for a few months now on videos, and it's always a good time being on set, no matter what it is. Like even if it's a 2 minute video, it's a great day.
Oh, that's fun. You'll have to send me a link to one of their videos so I can see what it is you're talking about. Because there's a few video companies, probably 15-minute video might be the shortest ones I've seen,
Yeah.
but,
So
not
these
these
ones
little
are
2
like
or 3.
real life stories, kind of
Right?
stories. So
Yeah.
usually I'm the victim of some sort of terrible nonsense. I'm usually some downtrodden wife with a really really jerky husband. So
Mm.
that was sort of I think what I got called back for lots of times because I can cry easily and make it
So
believable.
true
And
life
then
inspiration is what you're talking here,
and
right?
then this one I get to be the villain though. I'm a very
Ooh.
mean teacher coming up, so this should be a fun change.
That sounds like a lot of fun.
It
I would
is.
love to do
It is.
I'd
Yeah.
love to do that. Oh, boy. Anyway, so how did you meet Josh and Jen?
I actually met both of them at a business networking event. So we were part of the same business networking group originally, and I at that time was having a lot of board game parties. We have a collection of over 1,200 board games. Uh, yeah, we
Oh
go to the World
my.
Board Game Championships every year. Like we like our games. So
Holy moly.
I invited them to one of our board game nights,
Yeah.
and they kind of took to my house as like the place where they could go and just be themselves and relax. Which we have a very warm, welcoming, loving environment in our home. So they started coming to more game nights, and then just sort of became permanent fixtures.
They just kind of moved in under the DL, right? It's just,
Yeah,
yeah.
took a
Oh
few
my
years,
goodness.
but
Yeah. But you got them.
yeah,
Oh my goodness. So I'm sorry, I have to back up here. 1,200 board games?
yeah, yeah.
Do you have favorites or are they all your babies?
So, here's the thing. Even the bad ones, I have trouble getting rid of. So there are a couple of games in time over time that I've gotten off the shelves, but it's pretty rare because I think there's value in almost every game. And
Yeah.
I do have favorites, sort of, but I have favorites tailored for each individual situation. So I have favorite party
Mm.
games for when we have a large group. I have favorite games
Mhm.
for playing with certain people. I have a
Yeah.
subset of games that I always make sure to play in tournament when we go to the World Board Game Championships. So
Oh
I
my
do have
goodness.
favorite games for every single purpose.
Oh, wow. I'm sorry, World Board Game Championships. What do you play at that? The
So
list would be endless.
they have over 120 games that they have tournaments for there. So
Wow.
it's voted on every year by the Board Game Players Association what games are going to be played that year, essentially. They have ones that are sort of grandfathered in that they had enough hours the year before that they are definitely getting played this year. And then there's a trial vote every year as well. So what you're playing each year differs. Although sometimes people go for a specific game and they make sure to go to every heat of that. I have
Oh,
a
okay.
few games that I always play. So we each have probably 3 or 4 games that we try not to miss any of it.
Oh, for sure.
And
Oh,
then
yeah.
we fill in the other time slots as we can.
I'll have to talk about that with you some other time because that sounds fascinating.
Oh,
Like,
it's amazing.
I'm a total geek when it comes to social events and things like that. So I may watch it from a distance. I have days where, I have bipolar disorder. So some days I'm really on and some days I'm really not.
Yeah.
So, it's the
Well,
way
the
it
good
goes.
news is you don't have to play games the whole entire time. It's at a ski resort in off season. So there's a spa, there are a couple of pools, there's bowling, axe throwing, there's a whole bunch of outdoor activities, the alpine slide, Euro bungee, summer tubing, paddle boards. It's pretty awesome.
Wow.
It's a whole
Wow.
family
Where
event.
is this magical place?
It's just in Pennsylvania. It's not even that far.
Well, it depends on where you live.
Yeah,
Bit
sure, but
funny.
it's not like on the other side of the world or anything.
That's true. It's not like it's in Europe or
Yeah.
Asia somewhere. So, okay. Wow. Well, that's cool. So you met Josh and Jen at a board game convention?
No, I
Or
met them
no, no,
at a business group. Yeah.
business group,
I was
right.
there for my photography. They were there when they ran the courier service. So,
Yes, yes. That famous courier service that was incredibly successful except for, business. Um, that
you
was
know, honestly, I don't think they do it any differently. The reason
I
it went
really
under
don't.
is because they made sure people got paid during the pandemic. And
Yep.
I've talked to them about it before. I think they'd do the exact same thing again, even though it put
And you
them
know
in a
what?
bad position.
I would never even picture them doing it a different way.
Yeah.
Honestly, knowing them the way that I do, um, the fact that their priority was their people makes 100% sense to me.
It
So,
absolutely
yeah,
does.
and there would have been a lot of companies out there who would not have been even an iota as honorable as that. So,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, they're pretty awesome people.
Oh boy,
Yeah,
we have a wealth of stories of times that we did not make money because we were being ethical. So
yeah. Yep, I can imagine.
it's
I
not the
can
easiest
imagine.
path, but
Yeah. Well, see, I have my husband. He makes a reasonable living, and I do YouTube, and I'm also an
love it.
artist. These are a couple of mine over here.
Oh,
So,
that's awesome.
yeah, these are both from photographs. This one was from my chiropractor. She went to Hawaii and brought back this picture, and it was all yellow, except it was
Mm,
an ocean sunrise or something like that. It was just amazing. And
beautiful.
this one behind me here is the view out of my dad's window as he was in the hospital before he died.
Oh,
And
wow.
it's just, yeah, this one in particular really means a lot to me. I
I bet.
love this one. So, yeah, no, I've got all sorts of different things. Anyway, so we're not here to talk about me though. We are
It's
here
nice
to
to get to
talk
know you.
about well, yeah, hey, get to know me a little bit. You're friends with my friends. We should be friends.
Exactly.
So so now we are here though to talk about your family dynamic.
Yeah.
Tell me what you can about it. Um, does it have a name besides George?
Well, I mean, I whenever anyone asks me, "Oh, who are Jen and Josh?" I sort of call them and the other people in our circle my chosen family. I
Right?
don't feel the family is just what you're born into or what you marry
Right.
into, right? You
Right.
get to choose who your family is. So, I mean, that's what I would call it. But
Mhm.
I guess generally speaking, our what our romantic relationship is polyamory. And that means different things to different people.
Mhm. Okay. So what does it mean to you and your family?
Well, really, I mean, for me, it just means love isn't limited, right? You're
Right.
not you're not putting restrictions on that necessarily. And I
Right.
think really that's a beautiful thing. Oh, someone broke in. Hey, buddy.
So-
Here, come say hello. You did sneak up.
Hi, Lyndon.
Hey.
How you doing?
I don't know who he is even, Mom.
This is
I'm
Kim.
I'm a friend to Auntie Jen
Yeah,
I don't
and
know.
Uncle Josh.
this is Auntie's friend, and I'm teaching her about our family.
Okay.
Yeah, you want to go find Daddy and tell him, did you get a cupcake yet? We baked cupcakes earlier.
I did, but I didn't have the vitamin inside mine.
Oh, I'll have to find that one for you later. Can you go down with Daddy now so I can finish what I'm doing? Love you, buddy.
My friend that is near me.
Okay, well, why don't you tell me all about that when I'm all done? I'll be back down in a little while, okay? And then
But
maybe I'll read you a story.
I think I told the her.
Oh, you want to tell her?
Okay, you tell me.
Okay.
So Jacob's family lives near my house, and also a few of my other ones.
Yeah?
Like the person who gave me that spider thing.
Oh, yeah, that was nice.
Oh, that is nice.
A few days, a really long time ago.
Oh, we have
Okay,
lots of
yeah.
nice neighbors. We're very lucky.
That's
Really.
good.
But the other friends that live near my house, and one of my other ones.
Well, he's not shy, so that's
No,
nice.
and is he ever a sweetie?
He is.
Wow.
He's a good boy.
Smart as a whip.
And honestly, it's I think largely because of living the way that we do. He
Right.
constantly has love around him. He has 4 older sisters, right? So his
Yeah.
emotional intelligence, he's only 3, he'll be 4 in March, but his emotional intelligence is just like through the roof because he's learned from very little to talk about his feelings and identify his emotions and understand how other people are feeling because we're all very open about how we're feeling and how we're fixing problems and that sort of thing. So
For
it's a
sure.
beautiful thing to witness.
That is a lot of little kids, like even somebody who has older siblings, usually they don't get to see the feeling side of it because the grown-ups try to protect them from all of that.
Yes.
Whereas all those little kids have such big emotions, and that's why they freak out because the emotions just feel so huge they don't know what to do with it. When the older people are willing to actually talk and work through it and say, "Okay, buddy, let's look at this,"
Yep.
it makes a huge difference.
It really does. And you know what? I have a theory that we could actually fix the world if we would just give children more respect.
Oh,
Children
yeah.
his age, all the way up to teenagers who get almost zero respect,
Yeah.
it would change the world. Everyone has something to offer, everyone has something to teach us, but we treat our children like possessions instead of people. And it's insane. No wonder the world is the way it is.
I would have to agree with you there. Absolutely. In our family, um, when I grew up, being angry or something like that was a sin because it was a bad emotion, right? You're not
Yeah.
allowed to be angry. You're not allowed to lash out. You're not allowed to this. And I finally, when I finally broke down and went to a therapist, he's like, "Do you know how stupid that is?" I'm like, "Excuse me? You know how awfully, terribly poisonous that is for yourself." So my girls grew up knowing, yeah, be angry, yell, scream, throw things all in your bedroom, throw a
Yeah.
stuffy, hit your pillow, yell and scream and kick and whatever you want. Don't hit a person, like don't hurt a person, and don't break stuff.
Yep.
Other than that, you're good to go.
Yeah.
Because I mean, they need that outlet. So when the outlet for that negative emotion is there, then the outlet for the positive emotions is also there,
Yes.
right?
And
Those
you have
ones
to
that we
learn
want to.
you have to learn when you're little how to deal with those things. You're going to be angry for the rest of your life. Look around us. Of course we're going to be angry.
Oh, yeah,
But
exactly.
you have to
Yes.
find positive ways to channel that.
Yeah, absolutely. So in your family, it is just a great big cuddle puddle. But beyond that, so polyamorous, there are a variety of names for things, and I don't know enough to know what I don't know. So just please forgive me as I ask maybe some stupid questions
Oh, of
because
course. And I'm not going to
I
say for sure that I
don't
will have
know.
all the answers. So
Yes. Okay, so what is the difference between polyamory and polygamy?
so my understanding of that is it's more about multiple marriages, although it's not always a legal marriage in polygamy because that's not necessarily legal depending on where you are,
Right.
whereas polyamory has a lot more nuance. Like polyamorous relationships look like anything you could possibly imagine. So you might have just three people who are all a triad, who are all dating each other. You might have one person who is a hinge and is dating two different people. Sometimes those people are friends, sometimes they're not. You might have one person who's dating 14 different people and they all have different partners too. Like, it really, there are diagrams that people draw. It really could look like just about anything. And
Oh
really,
my
when it
goodness.
comes down to it, for me, I just think of it as, not necessarily limiting love, because that seems a little silly when you think of it.
Yeah. Yeah, limiting love is not something I'd want to do. I tend to prioritize, I guess, where I put my
Mhm.
attention though.
Yeah.
And how is it that you do that you keep your priorities in line?
I mean, that's not always easy, to be
For
quite
sure.
honest. I'm very upfront with anyone who's involved in my life in any way that my primary priority, whether you like it or not, is always going to be my kids. So
Mhm.
but that's sort of the base level.
Oh, yeah.
Uh, I'm very, very, very clear and upfront about exactly who I am. Just, I really value clear, open, honest communication. And I think
Mhm.
that helps too, because it also allows me to gauge what does someone need from me as well. Like, I I have a partner who, sometimes we don't talk for 3 or 4 days at a time. Uh, and there was a time in my life where I would have thought, well, that's not a healthy relationship. But by whose standard, right? As long
Mhm.
as you're both getting what you need out of that relationship and it's
Mhm.
adding value to your life instead of detracting from it,
Yeah.
then absolutely it's a healthy relationship. So I think a little bit of, reframing what this isn't always necessary, but a little bit of reframing of, what is a good relationship.
Yeah.
That was a learning curve for me too of, it doesn't, not everything has to be exactly the same. Every relationship is completely different.
Well, for sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, what is healthy? Is holding in the anger and not spewing it out onto the world healthy?
Mhm.
To a degree, when it's appropriate, yes. But then there are times when it is appropriate to voice and all of that. Um, so when you were growing up, what sort of situation did you have when you were growing up when it comes to families and that sort of thing?
Just my mom and my dad.
Okay.
They were separated for a time when I was young, and then we're back together. They were together, most of my life. My dad was away a fair amount, so I was with my mom
Mm,
most of the time.
Mhm.
But your standard relationship structure is what I grew up with. Also, probably the fact that polyamory was not, at least not talked about, if not practiced, was maybe a detriment, because certainly I was always polyamorous. I just didn't know that that was an actual thing up
Right.
until, a little over a decade ago, maybe.
Yeah.
So I think it's nice to see a little bit more representation in media and stuff now.
Yeah.
Now, there's also bad representation. I can't remember the name of it now, but there's a reality show about to come out, or maybe it's already started, that is essentially a whole bunch of couples looking for a third. They may as well call the show Unicorn Hunter. Like, it's gives me all
Okay.
the yucks.
Oh boy. Okay, so what
Yeah.
is a unicorn hunter?
Okay, so again, I can't speak for everyone, but a lot of times in polyamory, especially with people who are new to polyamory, it ends up being established couples who
Mhm.
are looking for a third person to add to their already established dynamic. Now,
Okay.
not to say that there's anything wrong with triads, or triads forming, with an already established couple, but a lot of times what happens is they'll put a lot of restrictions in place and make that third person feel as if they're simply an addition and not an equal part of the relationship. And that's
Mhm.
sort of, what ends up being called unicorn hunting. You're looking for that one person to sort of just slip into a slot that you have open without really giving it the consideration of they should have, equal value within that relationship.
Makes sense. Yeah. Yeah, that does make sense. Especially if you're going to give them that place in your relationship, right? They're going to have equal um standing, I guess. So it would be like a husband having two wives, a wife having two husbands. Is that sort of what it would be like?
Yeah, I mean, again, it varies by, I think every situation is unique,
Yeah.
because well, generally speaking, I think polyamorous folks sort of stay away from rules. There are established boundaries, right?
Yeah.
So you so much communication, all the communication all the time. Like, I mean, I would recommend that to everyone,
Absolutely.
but
Yeah.
even more so when your relationship dynamic is a little bit more complicated. Like,
For
I've
sure.
had some of my kids say, like, no, I have no interest in ever being polyamorous, not because I have any issue with it, but because that's way too much work. Like,
It is a lot of work.
one relationship is enough to try to take care of. Like, you start
Yeah.
expanding that and it gets more complicated, right?
I know I wouldn't have the emotional fortitude to do so. I have to admit, it is beyond what I am at this moment capable of. I can honestly say that. When I was younger, it was very different. I was able to look and see and feel and do all of that stuff all at the same time. Um, but admittedly, that wasn't in a healthy way for
Right.
me, and probably not a healthy way for the people I was with. I
Right.
was never somebody who was in an official sort of polyamorous relationship. I was just not a good girlfriend to a number
Yeah.
of guys. You know,
I
it's
lived
the
in
way it
that
goes
space for a
sometimes.
while too, not gonna lie. Like,
Yeah,
you know, but I think getting to know yourself a little bit better is the cure for that, it seems.
that's true. That is very true. So, what sorts of stereotypes are there out there for polyamory?
Oh my goodness. As many different situations as you can think of for polyamory, there's probably that many stereotypes too. But of course, like, I think the most common one is there's a lot of slut shaming. So that
Mm,
that's like a really big thing, which again is a little silly, because in a lot of polyamorous relationships, like any relationships, it's not all based around sex. It's
yeah,
it polyamory. It's about the love, like, for me, anyways. Um,
right,
that's not to say that there aren't relationships where that is the primary goal,
right.
but to look at it as a whole and go straight to that always makes me question, like, what
Where's
exactly do
your
you think
mind
is going
at?
on here?
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. No, there's oftentimes those types of things are um, less about you and more about the person putting on that label, I guess,
Yeah.
right? It's like, what would you really be doing in this situation?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And of course, like, I say that media representation is good, and it is. And there have been some good examples in recent years of polyamorous relationships in media. It's still pretty
Mhm.
uncommon. But then there's also the representations, like, sister wife is polygamy, but still, same idea. A lot of people associate it with things like that, right? Where you
Mhm.
have fairly unhealthy dynamics going on.
Right.
Maybe a bit of oppression here and there,
Yeah.
not a lot of great communication and a lot of infighting. And so you kind of get associated with that as well, which is less than ideal. I'm going to be
Right.
honest. I belong to a lot of Facebook groups. I'm very active online because I'm a digital creator. So I'm in that space quite a bit.
Mhm.
And there's one polyamory group that I belong to where I swear it is like the most positive, uplifting space I've ever been in on the internet. I think that
Nice.
you end up with a lot of people who are a lot more self-aware and used to communicating really well, navigating other people's feelings a lot.
Yep. Yep.
And so you don't have as much of the negativity that you would normally find in your average Facebook group. In fact, I don't think I've ever in that group in the entirety of the time I've been there seen a single mean or negative post or comment.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's impressive, I will say. That
it
isn't
is.
something you see very often, is it?
I don't
Wow,
often
that's
invite people to groups. I've invited everyone I know who is polyamorous to that group specifically because it's just, such a great environment. But I do
wow.
find that generally speaking in, our polyamorous friends as well, that you tend to have, and of course this is, a generalization, but you tend to
Mhm.
have a more open-minded, chill crowd that is good at communication
Mhm.
and also interested in other people's feelings.
Yes. Yep. So what about things like cheating or open relationship or swinging or that kind of thing? Is that I imagine people would just insert adjective here kind of thing. Like, what do you
Yeah.
think of those types of adjectives or labels?
So, I mean, all of those can sort of be some of the ones that you mentioned can be encompassed in like ethical non-monogamy.
Mhm.
So, swinging is a thing that often gets conflated with polyamory, although they are technically two separate things. That doesn't mean they don't
Mhm.
coexist sometimes.
Mhm.
That's more of a, you know, this is a one-time not necessarily one time, but an encounter that it's not about the personal romantic relationship. It is more about that encounter. um, Cheating in a polyamorous relationship is still a thing. It is ethical non-monogamy, remember? So
Yes.
you
That
you do,
ethical part.
yes, that part's important. So you do have that communication thing. I'm going to say that 1,000 times tonight, but it is important. What exactly are your boundaries? What are you comfortable with? What will work for our dynamic? And that again is going to be different from relationship to relationship. My personal way of looking at it would be you are cheating if you are doing something that you have previously discussed with your partner is not within the scope of what works for your relationship, right? Just like
That
anybody.
makes sense.
Yeah.
And okay, that takes me to the next one. Who chooses um who to allow into a relationship, I guess?
Yeah, so I know I keep saying this, but very
Communication.
drastically.
Yes.
So some polyamorous relationships, if it is like an established couple, for example,
Yep.
they might have veto power.
Mm.
A lot of people don't love that, but it is a thing that happens. And honestly, if I decided I wanted to date someone and all of my partners were like, I fucking hate that person.
Yeah.
What are you thinking?
Yeah.
Well, that would make me go, maybe not. Because
I'll reconsider.
there are certain, like, there are different types of polyamory too. Like, um, kitchen table polyamory is sort of what. Yeah, it sounds
Please
funny, but
define.
it just means really that like everyone comes together and does things together and is friends, and whereas there are some people who, we're a couple, you have people that you see, I have people that I see, and those two never really meet,
Okay.
and everything in between. So
Okay.
because it's just how my life is anyways. We have a very busy life. I have a lot of things going on. If you can only see me when you're only seeing me alone, you're probably not going to see me like very
Yeah.
often. So we
Yeah.
very much have a lifestyle of anyone who's involved in our life is involved in all of our lives to some extent,
Right.
just because we're friendly, we like people, and it's kind of a lot more efficient that way.
Generally, I imagine. So how many people would be within your polyamory group, I
Yeah,
guess?
so
Do
we
you have a
call
name for your polyamory group?
Yeah, so generally speaking, we call it a polycule. And remember how I talked
Ooh.
about these diagrams? Like
Yeah,
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 it's, I guess, because it kind of looks like a molecule when you map it out. Um,
yeah.
so
Just don't call
yeah,
it Corona.
I can certainly think of some names that people have come up with for our group,
Yeah.
but no, I mean, we just sort of call it family, and
Okay.
I'm the type of person where I don't go into things in my life lightly. Sometimes make decisions quickly, but there's a lot going on in there. Like I'm thinking about it hard.
Yeah.
So I sort of live my life as if no one should really have a problem with anything I'm doing, because they shouldn't. Like we're
Yeah.
nice people. We're not causing trouble for anyone. And if you have an issue with you know who I'm dating or who I live with, well, that's kind of a you problem. So
Mhm.
it's sort of just part of life for me. If I am talking to people, I talk about Jenn and Josh just like I would talk about Adam, who also lives here and is Lyndon's father, right? Like I don't really make a distinction in that we're all important parts of each other's lives, right?
Right. Okay. So you have are you and Adam married?
We're not married, no. I guess we
Okay.
kind of count as
But you
common law
are
according to the government. But
but I was gonna say you were a couple prior to
yeah,
Josh and
so
Jen, is that correct? And
exactly.
Josh and
So
Jen
all intents and purposes, yeah.
yes. Okay. So it ended up being, I shouldn't say ended up. It started out being you and Adam
Yeah,
met Josh and Jen,
that's right.
and then what happened?
Uh,
How did the relationship develop?
so I think initially, um, I was just Adam and I were just coming out of another relationship that did not work out particularly well
Mm.
for a variety of reasons.
Mhm.
I At that time I was pretty confident that polyamory was a great experiment, but boy, that's a lot more trouble than it's worth. And the
Mm.
chances of me ever letting anyone live in my house ever again were like slim to none.
Yeah.
But because we developed with like a strong base of friendship that
Mhm.
changed over the years. So I think actually really the first step there was Jenn sort of like set me up on a date with Josh stealthily. She sent us out for a ukulele workshop in Indian food. and, and then
Alrighty.
and then things sort of just like snowballed from there. But yeah, I mean, I think for me, anyways, having a base of friendship is important in any relationship. I
Absolutely.
I have very little interest in having a romantic relationship with someone that I can't also be friends with, right? Like that.
Well, yeah. Like afterwards, what do you talk about, right? Like
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it works
just
for some people, and that's great. I'm not judging,
yeah.
but for me, that friendship is really important. So that's really how it developed. Is we had a very strong friendship, and they were already family essentially. And then when the end of last year,
Mhm.
we decided, actually, I think it was even in the summer of 2022, we decided that we really should just like they were at our house all the time, anyways. We might as well find a place that we can all live in, and that was a bit of a process because
Yeah.
there are a lot of us, and we also, in addition to my kids, Adam, Jenn, and Josh, We also have Jen and Josh's adult son who lives with us.
Mhm. Okay.
And then his friend PJ also lives here with us. So
Oh,
so it's a
wow.
busy place. Plus, of course, I have teenagers. So anytime they're here, there are also, a dozen other teenagers here.
Of
So
course.
so it's a
Yeah.
busy place. And then, some of us we have our core family in the house here, but
Mhm.
some of us also have other people that we're dating. So, they're around and, we're out and about. And so it's never a boring time, never a dull moment.
I can't imagine. Like this, when I was growing up, we had our nuclear family, which was incredibly dysfunctional, but we had a lot of people in our house a lot of time. And that I can completely understand.
Yeah.
I can definitely get behind that. And it's kind of nice because I mean, when it was just my mom and I on our own, mom would prefer my friends came over to our house because then at least she knew what
Yeah.
we were up to, right?
I say that all the time, honestly. So my house growing up was the place where friends congregated, generally speaking.
Hmm.
And I really like having that dynamic here. I like that my kids' friends feel like they have a safe place to go if they just need to
Hmm.
like chill for a while. We're perfectly happy to sit and listen to you talk or let you go hide in the closet for a while. Like, whatever you need to do, you're welcome to do that here and be safe and be comfortable. And it is nice to be able to, be around my kids and meet their friends and, have a good idea of what's going on the majority of the time.
For sure. How do your kids feel though about the polyamorous type of lifestyle?
Well, I think the 10-year-old, well, she was 11 now, but when she was 10 said, why would I care? It's not hurting me any because someone asked her
Fair.
once. Like, why
Yeah.
would that matter? But now with that said, most of my older kids identify as being LGBTQ, somewhere on in that
On the
acronym
spectrum
somewhere.
of
Yeah. So, I mean, I think for them, it's probably because of the way we've lived and because, that's sort of how they identify as well as being, different from the norm, which what does that
I
even
hate
exist
that word.
anymore? Yeah.
Yep.
I'm not a fan either.
It's a setting on a
Uh,
dryer. We'll just yeah.
exactly. So, I mean, they also, though, had exposure to polyamorous relationships, even before we were really out about that.
Okay.
So their art teacher, from the time they were very young,
Hmm.
said something one time about his girlfriends, and they were like, "Oh, you mean girlfriend?" I was like, "No, girlfriends. I'm polyamorous." And so he explained to them what that meant. And they've come across that a couple of times in life. So
Wow.
to them, it's just a completely normal thing.
It's been demystified.
Yeah,
It's not this great big out other thing. Okay. See, that's kind of
yeah,
what I want to do on this channel is make things less scary,
yeah,
like actually talk about it, ask some of the really weird, unusual, uncomfortable type questions with somebody who's open enough to talk about it.
yeah.
So, does everybody in the relationship have to agree when a new person is introduced?
Well, so here's how generally, I mean, again, different for everyone, but here, um, I think that it would be totally fine for, let's say, Jen to, go and date whoever she wants. The time when I think everyone would have to agree is if they're in the house around the kids,
Mhm.
as a larger part of the family, right?
Mhm.
Uh, I have no say over what you do over there, and that's great. You have fun and do whatever you'd like. Be safe and happy and healthy. It's really only when it's like an integration is happening that you'd
Mm,
really have to worry about that.
for sure. Yeah. That does make a lot of sense. Yeah.
I'm pretty
So,
careful about who's around my kids. So
I think most parents are, and if they're
yeah,
not, they should be.
yeah,
Yeah, because that's what we wanna do. We wanna raise up tiny humans to be respectable adults, right? And
yes,
respectful adults,
absolutely.
right? I learn a lot of these types of things from my younger daughter who's online with such a variety of friends, and she
Mhm.
has maybe 2 or 3 friends who she can drive and go to their house for dinner or something like that.
Mm,
Everybody else is somewhere else in the world,
yeah,
so she's on about all of these things all the time. So I'm like, okay, honey, what's this? What's this? What's this? So I know a lot more than I used to about stuff. A
Honestly,
lot
my
more
kids
about
are
some things.
teaching my mother things all the time. She'll ask them, like, she just doesn't quite, she's very open and understanding, but she just
Mhm.
doesn't quite get all of it, right? So
Well,
she
yeah,
she's asking them questions all the time, about various things that they know a lot more about than she does. And it's
yeah.
nice that we can recognize that, yes, they have something to teach us. Kind of goes back to that. In fact, one of my daughters was very insightful, honestly, talking about why she didn't think it was a great idea, generally speaking, for teenagers to be in polyamorous relationships. Because, you
Oh,
always have crushes on a few
oh yeah,
different people, right? But she said because no one in that age group, not no one, but it's very rare to find people in that age group who are self-aware enough and adequate communicators for that to actually be a healthy dynamic for anyone. But
right.
for a young person to be able to recognize that and go, hey, so, here's a hole I can see. Maybe people need to be careful of this for this reason. Yeah, that's pretty
Yeah,
impressive. Yeah.
that's really good. Yeah. So you would suggest monogamy first and then branch out if such is your desire, as both of you would agree?
Not necessarily. What I would suggest is make sure that you are very self-aware, that you get rid of your ego as much as you possibly can,
Mhm.
and
That's
that
hard.
you learn healthy communication.
Yeah.
I think the important thing to realize in all interactions with other people, even more so in polyamory, is that it's not all about you. So
Rarely is it about you.
yeah, I think if we all learned in general, and I don't just mean in relationships, but if we all learned in life if I could snap my fingers and make anything in the world happen, it would be to make everyone think about other people at least as much as they think about themselves. More would be ideal, but that's a hard sell. But at least as much as we think about ourselves,
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
everyone would immediately be better off. That and being good to children. Two things that could erase so much trauma.
Yes. Oh, yeah, absolutely. The being good to children would be, like, right part and parcel with that particular
It
thing, I
would.
think.
You're
Yeah.
totally right, because the reason that people do that to kids is because they have their own trauma that started when
Oh,
they were
yeah.
little and just snowballed because no one ever addresses it because they don't know that it exists. So that
Right.
self-awareness piece, that's very important.
It is, it really is. Yeah,
Yeah.
I grew up, like I said, in a very dysfunctional home, and I swore I would never make the same mistakes my parents did, and I didn't. I made all new creative mistakes, and I have traumatized my children that way. So and trust me,
We'll
I've been
always
told.
find a way to traumatize our kids. It's
I know. "Yes,
inescapable.
honey, I'll pay for your therapy later." Let's
Yeah.
just live with it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we could all benefit from some more therapy too, actually.
Oh, yeah. Well, couldn't we all? That's
You
for
know,
sure.
it's funny though. I talk to a lot of people from all over the world. And
Mhm.
very often my advice to people is, I think you might want to seek someone to talk to.
Yeah.
And often the response is, well, I'm not crazy. Like, that's also not what I said. So
Yeah,
let's just
no.
walk that back a step. But I can
Yeah.
see how that could be like a cultural thing, right? Not everywhere is caught up to where we are in terms of mental health. I had
Right.
a very disturbing moment while talking to some teenagers recently, that even here, we're not really as far along as I thought we were. Turns
Mhm.
out teenagers are very against therapy and think that if you are going to therapy, there must be something seriously wrong with you. And my retort was, well, I think if you won't consider therapy, there's probably something seriously wrong with you, but
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
digress. But yes, no, they're, use it as an insult and, hurl it at people. Oh, well, you need therapy. Like, I'm really disturbed that we're not
Yeah.
as far ahead on that as I think that we should be. Uh,
Yeah.
so so lots of strides to be made there. But really, when it comes to any sort of relationship, but especially relationships that are sort of non-standard,
Right.
uh, whether it's through therapy or through self-reflection, through lots of good communication, knowing yourself is going to make sure that you
Yeah,
have a stable base. And I know that there are
absolutely.
a lot of polyamorous relationships, or a lot of people come into polyamory, which we advise against, by, oh, well, now my relationship is rocky and not going well. This is what can fix it. And that's where the unicorn hunting comes in a lot of the time, right? So
That's
that
where
is
having a
something,
baby comes in sometimes too.
yes,
That
it
baby
is.
has a
Yeah,
big job before it even enters the world.
yeah, exactly. So I
Yeah.
mean, that is probably the one thing that I would caution against. Don't
Mm,
try to think that polyamory is going to fix your relationship. If it was broken to begin with, it's just going to break more if you try to add more pieces to it. Uh,
absolutely.
And if it's something you're considering, make sure you are very self-aware and know how to communicate properly before you go down that
Mhm.
road. Yeah, not
Yeah.
gatekeeping or anything, just saying that would be my personal advice. And like, if you want to save
Well, I'm
yourself some
willing to gatekeep just a little, just
well, yeah,
especially when it comes to broken people trying to fix something without
yes,
fixing themselves, right? So yeah, I deal with mental health on a regular basis. I'm not shy when it comes to mental health, and I never have been. Um, no, let me rephrase that. In my adulthood, I have not been, mostly because I didn't know enough about it as a kid. So
yeah,
I've been working with the Schizophrenia Society here in Saskatchewan, and we go to schools. We talk about mental health, and we destigmify destigmat.
that's to
We take
stigmatize.
away the stigma. I can't
That is
talk today.
awesome. That's awesome. It's
You know?
really, and we should be going into schools and making
Yep.
sure that
Yeah.
children know how to identify what's going on within them, to know that they can go to someone to talk and there's nothing wrong with that.
That's
And
right.
be
That's exactly right.
handed tools to be able to self-assess, to be able to figure out what's going on within you, to tools to in your toolkit to come out of those moments of darkness. Like they exist. We just need to provide them
Yeah.
and stop
Yeah.
making it such a big bad thing.
Exactly. Yeah, making everything so big and scary. It's just kind of where the world has gone these days. Everything is big
Yeah.
and scary.
I
So,
mean,
yeah,
and it
I
is.
think
Look around us.
that's
There
a
are a
little bit.
lot of things to cause us stress. Don't get
Yeah.
me wrong. I'm not saying that people should just, pretend it's not bad, but
No.
acknowledge and then,
Yep.
find your healthy ways to deal with that.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. So, what else have I not asked that you are frequently asked?
Oh, goodness. So I think probably the thing that I'm asked most often, and you didn't ask this because you're not a pry person, I would imagine. I mean, we just met, but you'd be surprised. Is really like I get asked a lot about, our sleeping situation or that sort of thing.
Mm,
Which, generally speaking, I'm fairly open about, but also, if I like you, then we'll talk about that. Like
yeah.
it's weird for strangers to come up and ask you that. Would I come up
By the
and
way, who do you have sex with? You know?
exactly. Like, would I
And
come
it'd
up
be
and say
right
that to
back
you?
at you.
That'd be
Who do you?
weird. Right.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
I think it's funny that like I'm actually a pretty open person. I don't necessarily personally mind those sorts of questions, but I do think it's weird that they're coming usually from people who'd be very offended if I turn around and ask them the same thing, right?
Yeah.
so
Yep.
so
That's
that's
true.
a big one. Um yeah, I mean, because I'm pretty pretty open about life,
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
don't think that there's a lot of mystery
Mm.
surrounding who we are
Right.
and what we are. So I don't end up getting a lot of unusual questions because we are weird and we're aware. And I post about it on Facebook a lot. So
Weird is not a bad thing.
it is not. In fact, often when people call my children weird, they go, thanks.
Thanks. Yeah, means I'm different, which means I'm not boring, you
Yes,
know?
exactly. Yeah. It might
Yeah,
it might make your
exactly.
time in, junior high or high school a little trickier, but it'll make the
Yeah,
rest of your life more exciting.
absolutely, absolutely. So, yeah. So, we've got you and Adam, Josh and Jen. I know Josh has 1 or 2 girlfriends, is that correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
It does.
okay. Jen, does she have other people as well?
Not right now. No, she's sort of in a place where she is just working on her and making sure that her life is doing the things that she wants it to do, focusing on only the core things that are really important to her. Now, that's not to say that she's not interested in dating and will never go out and date, but right
Right.
now that's, not her focus.
Okay. And yourself? How about yourself?
Yeah, I do have two other partners that are, here quite regularly. One that's, in another city an hour away, but, comes to visit often and is sort of integrated into the family and, sometimes goes on trips with us and that sort of thing. And then another that's 5 hours away, but comes for a week or two at a time to
Yeah.
visit and
It's
goes
hard
on
when you have a
vacation.
relationship that distant, when you can't spend some really good quality time.
We've known each other though for 20 years.
Oh,
And
wow.
so it's, we already have a very well-established relationship. We dated many, many, many years ago, and then we're friends for a long time in between, and then sort of, loop back around to a relationship again. But, we might not see each other often, but that doesn't make that relationship any less important or any less special, right?
That's for sure. And how about Adam?
Well, Adam, I've actually known for a good portion of my life too, almost 20 years. So we knew each other shortly after I moved to Ontario. My mom and I were out at Walmart looking for exercise videos. And
Mm.
Adam was working at Walmart and just happened to be the person that we asked to help us find what we were looking for. And something inside me, like I had a boyfriend at the time, I was not romantically interested in him, but something inside me went, I'm supposed to know this guy. And I
Mm.
left and left it at that. And it ate at me for days until I just went back and was like, so this is kind of weird, but I'm pretty sure we're supposed to be friends. So let's
So
do
here's
that.
my number. Call me for coffee.
Yeah. And I let him know that I had a boyfriend. It wasn't like that. I was just, trying to be friends. And we were friends for as long as it took before I moved to another city. And
Mhm.
then he came to visit there every so often and played board games with us and stuff. And then we sort of lost touch. It was, before the days of Facebook. I lost my phone. I moved to China. There were a lot of things going on.
Lost my phone, moved to
Um,
China, all the same thing. It's
yeah, exactly. And so, during that time, got married, had 4 kids, and then eventually he sort of looped back into life, near the end of my marriage, and was, a
Mhm.
very strong and supportive friend during a very difficult time.
Yeah.
And that sort of just, developed into a relationship. And boy, he's been there through a lot. And
Yeah.
I'm honestly probably, more, just as not more, but just as protective of him as I am of my children. Like
Yeah.
there have been people in my life who I'm very, very, very close with, who I've talking to for months at a time because they said something even slightly disrespectful about Adam.
Yeah.
So,
That makes sense.
so I,
Like, he
I
was there
draw
for
some pretty
you
hard
during
lines.
well,
Yeah.
he was there for you probably during some of your hardest times, right?
Yes,
So,
definitely.
having protected you and your children at the same time, that's
Yes.
gonna just open up that much larger space in your soul for him, I imagine.
Yeah. I like really, he is one of the best people I've ever met, and just, so chill, just such a calming energy, which is really helpful when you have a chaotic life.
Oh, for
Uh,
sure.
and it's nice to have him around. He's a good man.
Well, that's good. That
Yeah.
is excellent. So, it's been about an hour-ish. Is there anything else you'd like to share?
Well, I think I will just close out by saying, probably not a good idea to prejudge people just because they're in a situation that's different from something that you're used to. Uh, you know, I if I've learned anything by talking very deeply to a lot of people in all walks of life all over the world, it's that we could do this 1,000 times over and
Mhm.
never even scratch the surface of understanding like the depth and breadth of the human experience.
Right.
And
That's for sure.
I think we all need to, as we, look at other people and jump to judgments, remember that there's a
Yeah.
lot that you don't understand and a lot that you don't know. And get rid of your ego for a moment and realize that other situations that you're not used to, still valid, still
Yep.
beautiful in their own way. Doesn't mean it's for you, but that doesn't mean it's
Right.
not, people that you might absolutely love being friends with and having as a part of your life.
Absolutely. Like, if I didn't have Josh and Jen as part of who I have been, over these years, I would not be the person I am today, and I'm kind of awesome, so they're a big part of the fact that, I am who I am,
That's
and I
awesome.
love
Yeah.
that about them.
They're
So,
great
yeah,
people. They are.
they
It's
are.
really our host is, not to say that we don't ever have problems like any other people on earth, but our host is full of love and board games and music all the time. So
Ukulele, go ukulele.
so much ukulele. I was just doing ukulele lessons with Lyndon this morning. So
There you go.
yeah.
That's perfect. Alrighty. Well, thank you so much for joining me tonight, Sarah. I really appreciate this. Thank you for the information and being so open. Yeah, that's something that a lot of people couldn't do gracefully. You were wonderful. Thank you.
Anytime, and thank you so much for having me. And if anyone watching has questions, always welcome to reach out. You can find me directly on Facebook, Sarah Jean Stewart, and just follow me there. Anyone who sends me messages, it sometimes takes a little while, but I'll always try to answer. And I'm also on Instagram and TikTok at Adventure Seeker Sarah, but Facebook is going to be your fastest route to me.
Excellent. And hang on, where am I here? There we go. Um, if you have any questions or comments and would like to reach us here at My Other's Keeper, is at gmail.com. So we're very easy to get in touch with. We're very easy to talk to. And if you have questions, comments, criticisms, even if it's a criticism, that's okay. I have no problem with that. I have biblical reasons for being able to open my heart to people that not everybody is little white Christian me, right? It's just the way it is. So if you want to ever discuss Bible and that kind of stuff with me, I'm open. So yes, I love talking to a lot of people about a lot of things. Talking to Sarah about her family dynamic has been a real joy. I really appreciate this. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, Kim. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. And I hope to meet you in person at some point.
Well, I'm sure you will.
Okay. Talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.